Hi there, my name's Kirsten. This is the Paper Knits Podcast, episode number 23. I am a knitter in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I really love to knit and create things, and being able to talk about it on the internet with you guys has brought me a lot of joy. I just had my 2-year podcast anniversary, which I kind of forgot about. I started this podcast, I think May 1st, 2023. Birdie's gonna say a quick hello. Oh, Margot's coming too. And yeah, so last year I did a giveaway and stuff for my 1 year, and then this time around it was it came and went, and I kind of remembered, and that was it. So yeah, I had a really busy couple of weeks here and months, and I've got lots of things to share with you. My last episode was a bit of a different one. I was talking about all of my languishing whips, some of them many years old. And so yeah, if you haven't seen that, you can go check that out, because my episode before that, which was actually my normal podcasting one, is quite a while ago now, and so I've got lots of things to share. Only one finished object I think that I'm wearing, and one that's I've been wearing it but it's not finished, but I'll show you that. And then some new exciting things to talk about too. So yeah, hope you'll stick around. I am on Instagram as @paper.knits, and I'm on Ravelry as thisispaperknits. I share kind of more in real time things on my Instagram account, and I also keep my Ravelry really updated, and so if you like either of those things, then you can find me there. I also link everything that I've talked about in the description box here on YouTube. If I've mentioned a pattern or a yarn or pretty much literally anything, I've got a link to it down below, so you can check that out, and my links to my Instagram and Ravelry are there too. So I have a finished object to show you today that I am wearing. This is my Friday Slipover by Petite Knit. This was very much I wouldn't say an impulse knit, because I had been seeing it for 6 months, but my local yarn store, the Fiber Nook, had this as a sample in their shop, and every time I went in, I would see it, be like, oh, what is that? It's I love it so much, and then I'd check the tag, oh yeah, Friday Slipover, and then 6 weeks later, I'd be back in and be like, oh yeah, what is that again? I love it so much. So then when I went, there was one day in March when I went in and decided okay, today's the day. I just really want that knitted item in my wardrobe. And theirs was in this lovely green color, and so I wanted it also in green. And I wasn't planning, I bought the yarn, but I wasn't planning to cast it on right away, but I was feeling really just excited about it, and so I cast it on, and it was pretty quick knit. It is knit in Broken Rib, which I found quite rhythmic to knit, which was nice. I really like there's just kind of how the shaping lines work on the shaping for the armhole. I really liked, and that's one of the things I'd noticed on the sample at the store. I really liked how that looked, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. I knit mine in Homestead Super Soft in the color Green Apple, which I've never used Homestead before, and then I paired it with this Ice Silk Mohair, which is more green in real life. I'm having a hard time capturing the actual color of it. It ends up always looking a little bit gray or something on camera, but these paired together, I just really like it. The sample in the store I think was knit with an Ice fingering and then the mohair, and this mohair is expensive. It's $22 for 25 grams, which is quite a bit. It's also very soft and very lovely, and very nice to knit with, and didn't get all tangled. I really like it. So it was a bit of a splurge for this item, but also I didn't have to buy that much because it's just a vest. Although I do have, no, I think this is all I have left. I have 1.5 balls left of the whole scarn, but this is all I have left of the silk mohair. So I'll have to do something else with that. But I also, yeah, I really liked working with the whole scarn. I've heard, I'm sure you all have heard also, that it's kind of rough to knit with, and still has spinning oil in it, and so it's just not very soft. Maybe because I was holding it with the silk mohair, I didn't notice that at all. It was really nice to knit with, and I will for sure use it again. I love how many colors it comes in. I love the price point. I'll definitely be planning another project using that. It's nice, the Fiber Nook carries it, and so when you have a bazillion colors, it's nice to be able to see them in person and figure that out. So yeah, I kind of swatched. I did a swatch, didn't get gauge, and so went down a needle size, and then didn't swatch again. I just cast on. and kind of adjusted the size that I knit. I knit a size 4, I believe, whereas my measurements should have been for a 5. And so my gauge was just a bit too big, so I sized down in the pattern, and I think it worked out okay. It starts with the back, and you knit the back panel, and then you pick up for the shoulders, do the armhole shaping, and then join in the round. And when I joined in the round, I noticed that my gauge had changed a little bit from like working flat to working in the round. So I went down another needle size. I think in the pattern, let me just double check. Petite Knit recommends size 4 millimeters, and I was knitting for the body, then I knit like on a 3.25 millimeter. The pattern, the sample, whatever, like her version of it is knit in, the Isayer yarn. And then also she recommends the Sannisgarn Sunday by Petite Knit and the Sannisgarn Tin Silk Mohair. So pretty classic Petite Knit pairing there. Oh, you know what? I switched down to 3 millimeter after joining in the round. So I was knitting it mostly at 3.25, and then I went down to 3 millimeter. And I haven't actually noticed now since I blocked it. I didn't double check to see if I could still see. I knit like a couple of rounds and then went down a needle size, but I didn't go back and like rip them out. Because it was like noticeable, but not like really noticeable. So I think it's fine. And so yeah, I think the size is okay. I didn't measure what my like circumference was. It definitely relaxed with blocking. That was one of the things too. When I knit my swatch, I was on gauge before I washed it. And then when I blocked it, it relaxed quite a bit. And there's a note in the pattern about that. And so I knew that this would also relax quite a bit. I didn't pin it out aggressively. I probably could have gotten a little bit more ease. It's a little bit snugger around my bust than I typically wear these days, but I also really like it. I forgot to mention one of the other main modifications that I made is that I made the neckline a little bit wider and a little bit deeper. There had been a couple of Ravelry projects that mentioned that the neckline was quite tight. And then I also noticed in a lot of the pictures that the neckline was quite high. And that really bothers me when it feels too high on my neck. And so when I finished the back panel, you're supposed to pick up however many stitches here to do to start doing the shoulders. And so I picked up a little bit less so that this width was a little bit wider. And then I knit more rows just even before I started the shaping. And so then that added depth to the neckline as well. And I think it worked out really well. It feels like exactly the right depth for me now. So I'm glad that I made that modification. I added a note in my Ravelry project about what I did also, if you want more details. So I finished this at the end of April, and just as like spring arrived. And so I have worn it, but not a ton because the weather has warmed up here. And even though it's a vest, it's still fingering and mohair, and it's quite warm. But I'm really happy with it. I really like it. I think I'll show you the length. I just kicked my tripod. I hate when I do that. There's the length on me. So I compared it to the emery vest that I had knit right before, like right at the end of the year. Is that right? Where I'd run out of yarn and it was like quite cropped, right? So I've been wearing it with like a dress. And so I compared it to that and just like made sure I made it a little bit longer, but like not as long as like a normal sweater. So I feel like I can wear this like with jeans. I can also wear it with like a dress or high-waisted skirt or something, and I think it works. I think I mentioned last time about how I knit the Baby Friday Slipover or Baby Friday sweater or something like that, and didn't like the stitch pattern, and I said it looked like a dishcloth. And this does not give me dishcloth vibes at all. I'm proud to say it did not feel that way when I was knitting it. It doesn't feel that way wearing it. So I do think it being white and blue cotton stripes, and then it being this like lovely green mohair, I think that it doesn't give me dishcloth vibes anymore. So that's that. Finished. It's made its way into my wardrobe. I'm quite pleased with it. So I did calculate how much. I haven't been doing this. I previously had said I wanted to share how much everything cost at the end of it because I was curious, and I don't think that gets talked about enough about like the cost of using good quality materials. And let alone our like time that goes into creating these things. And so then I just like quickly calculated how much this cost me. And then I was like, ooh, maybe I don't want to talk about this. It was about $90. And of like what I used. And I have like it's like $90 worth of yarn in the vest. And so sometimes I always have to give myself this little like reminder that's like, I would never spend $90 at a store on a sweater vest, right? Like that would never happen. But also then I also appreciate that it is made with natural materials and it's ethically produced by me, who is in control of my labor conditions, and not that I'm getting paid for it, but it does bring me joy. And the cost of producing ethically made clothing there is a high cost to that. Speaking of, actually the t-shirt I'm wearing by a brand called Nettle's Tail that I've mentioned before, the gingham dress that I've been wearing with my knits is by them. And they just opened a store in Edmonton. So they're from Vancouver, and they announced a couple of months ago that they were opening a store in Edmonton. And so they opened last weekend, I believe. And I went like right as it opened and got a couple things. So, but they are very size inclusive, ethically produced clothing. Most of it is like cut and sewn in Canada. The owner's really cool. I really like their vibe. They started out making swimsuits, and so size inclusive swimsuits, and they've expanded into clothing. I really love them. And so let me just like give a little plug for their business. Anyways, what was I talking about? How did I get into that? Oh yeah, the price of this. So yeah, it does like it's still $90 that I had to pay with money to buy the yarn to make this. And even though I would not spend $90 at a store to buy a sweater vest, me getting to like create this thing feels different. So I don't know. I've heard some people say that it's tacky to talk about those things, but I think it's an important conversation. So I don't know if I will continue to bring it up. I've just been forgetting mostly of like why I don't calculate the cost of my knits. I have been adding everything to my spreadsheet with like the amount of yarn that I use, like my in and out of yarn, but I haven't been calculating the cost. So anyways, let's move on. Okay. So my other whip that I had going on was my Riggies cardigan by Gudrun Johnston. And this was from the Grand Shetland Adventure book. And that is the one that's like, it's not done, but I have been wearing it. So here it is. I finished all the panels. It's knit side to side in 4 panels, and then all the panels are attached together using 3 needle bind off, and then you pick up for the sleeves and knit down for those flat and seam those. And this is my like throw it over everything when I'm cold at my house sweater. I have a sweater from a store that is my like go-to for that. And this was the same vibe, and I really like it. I'm like really happy with how it turned out. It's like definitely oversized, definitely very drop shoulder. It's long, it's cozy. The part that hasn't finished yet is that I need to pick up and do the collar, and I just haven't yet. When I sewed it all together, like it's wearable. I'll put it on, I guess. It's wearable as is. It's just like, and it could be finished. Like it wasn't need the collar necessarily. The edge here is, I don't know if this would have been the cast on or the bind off. I don't remember which way. I think it was the cast on edge. And so it's a very neat edge, right? So yeah, it's just like oversized, and oh yeah, there's supposed to be pockets on it, and so anyways, but I've just been wearing it. I haven't wanted to take the time to add the collar because I have been wearing it quite a bit. Part of what I'm trying to decide about the collar is the ribbing is that called garter rib? Like 2x2 rib, but on a garter background. And I like that fine, but I don't like what the reverse of it looks like very much. I just don't like the look of that as much. And so on the collar, when it flips open, I will just see the inside of the ribbing. And I don't know if I want that. And so I had considered just doing regular 2x2 ribbing on the edges, but wanted to stick with what the pattern said. I might knit a double folded collar, and so then it's just, you can only see the ribbing, because then it'll be folded over on itself. I'm not sure. So anyways, this is knit in Istex Fialalopi, which is a sport weight yarn from, from like, oh, it's half the thickness of Letlopi, apparently. And then I also paired it with Sandisgarn Alpaca, insert word that I don't know how to pronounce, which is 100% alpaca lace weight yarn. And it definitely softened up the Istex yarn. The alpaca is like very, very soft. I bought the Istex yarn from the Knitting Loft, and I had been planning just to hold that single, but for some reason I thought that it was DK weight, and then it's not. It's sport weight. And so then I bought some of this alpaca to hold with it, and I really like it. Like I had gotten gauge with the Istex on its own, but it was quite open and airy, and so then adding the alpaca in just like filled in those spaces. It softened it up a little bit. Yeah, I really like it. It's very squishy. I think the collar, like, it definitely like drapes off of me because there's like no structure to it. I think the collar will help with that a little bit. Just like give a little bit more like fabric to like hold on to my body. And so I will add the collar, just having to decide about what type of collar I want to knit. I don't know if there's short rows in it. I can't remember if it's kind of like the shawl collar style or if it's just, knit back and forth for, I don't know, however many inches. I finished, well, actually, I don't think I made a note of when I sewed it together. I started this mid-March. It actually, I thought it was going to take longer because it is like quite a bit of knitting. But it actually ended up going like quite quickly. I think breaking it down into the panels, like I was ready to be done by the time I finished the last panel. And oh man, I'll have to insert some pictures of all of the ends that were everywhere. It was so chaotic. For some of the places there was live stitches that then I was doing 3 needle bind off. Some places you had to pick up stitches. I had left long tails in some places, which I don't even know if I ended up needing. It was so like overwhelming dealing with all of the ends everywhere. And just like this, like every corner of it had a long strand of yarn hanging off of it. And yeah, lots of ends to weave in. I don't know why, like it shouldn't have been that complicated, but I think maybe just because of all the pieces, and then with the 3 needle bind off and the seaming, and yeah, it was like, whew, sewing it together was not fun. I don't usually mind like seaming, but this wasn't enjoyable. So anyways, I didn't love that. But then once it was done, and then I felt like I could just wear it, like I was happy with it. So I brought it to, I will talk about this more later, but I did a weaving class in April, and I brought this along. I must have just sewn it together. And so I wanted to wear it, and it ended up being my like bench cushion, like at my weaving bench for the weaving class, which was great because yeah, it's very, very cushy and comfy, and yeah. Okay, next up I have my traveling Boulevardier, which is a made-up name that I am naming this sweater. It is the Traveler by Andrew Mary, but using the pattern Boulevardier by Thea Coleman. And so the Traveler series by Andrew Mary has these knit purl ridges. There's a pullover, there's a shell, cowl, maybe a like big shawl too. I had previously bought yarn for this, didn't like it. Like I swatched, I didn't like it, and then for some reason was deciding that like, oh, actually I do want that, but I want to do it with this Boulevardier pattern. The Boulevardier is my favorite sweater I've ever knit. I've said that many times on here. Really like it. I want to knit more of Thea Coleman's patterns, and I just really like the fit of it. I'm using River City Yarns Epic, which is a yarn from a store that was here in Edmonton that they don't have a store anymore. And so the yarn doesn't exist anymore, and I have quite a bit of it in my stash. And I was feeling like I needed to like get rid of some things in my stash. I saw that yarn and it just like, it all came together and like became this sweater in my mind. And so then I just like had to cast it on, and I think it's a good use for it. This is what I knit my Boulevardier in as well, just in a different color. And so I just like went with it. The Boulevardier also has like alternating knit purl rows, but not all over. Like it's also mixed in with like a bobble row and like a kind of like a cable row, and this is all over knit purl rows. So last time I marked it where I was at. I was right here, and so I had knit this portion, and then I have finished the back panel, and then I just finished the front panel the other day. So you can see it's very like scrunched up. Kind of like stretched it out to measure it as a guesstimate of like how much it will relax when I block it. I realized that before I got to the armhole shaping on the front, I was going to block the back to confirm the length, and then I forgot to do that. And so I need to do that. I will do that next, because I guess I can knit the sleeves. Well, I will want to know exactly how much it changes in length before I knit the sleeves. This looks weirdly short right now, but I'm trusting that it will relax. I knit it longer than the pattern called for anyways, because I had done that with my first one. So stay tuned about how that's going to go. But yeah, then you knit sleeves and then you seam everything together. One thing I wanted to show about this, when I was knitting the back panel, so it starts with like a few inches of ribbing, and I was doing combination knitting. And so where you knit normal, but then you do an Eastern purl. And so you wrap the yarn the opposite direction, it mounts the stitch the opposite direction, and then when you come back on the next row, then you have to knit it. Like, make sure that you're still knitting into the proper part of the stitch so that you're not twisting your stitches. Like how I always think about it is like with a Western mounted stitch, it's kind of closed, and so you have to like put your needle in to open it up. With an Eastern mounted stitch, it's already open, and so then you put your needle right in. This sounds kind of dirty, but anyways, I had knit, I'd done the same thing for ribbing on my sibling sweater my size that I knit last year, maybe the year before, and I noticed that the ribbing looked really uneven. And I forgot that that had occurred, and then I did it on this one, and then I noticed like, oh shoot, my ribbing looks really uneven. I noticed about halfway through. I didn't want to rip it out. I didn't want to change how I was knitting. We'll see if that will show up. It looks like my stitches are kind of twisted. I swear they are not. But yeah, they're just kind of like zigzaggy, right? So yeah, every other row, one of the legs of the stitch is too big, is what it looks like. So I did try and go with a little darning needle and like readjust it just to see if I could make it look any different. With my sibling sweater, I was like, ooh, maybe this will block out. Didn't block out. And now that I'm aware of it, I see it every time I wear the sweater and it bugs me. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It just bugs me. So I decided that this was going to be the back panel. And then when I did the front panel, I just knit like normal. And so that one has like the normal jaggediness of ribbing, where like part of why somebody might do the combination knitting with ribbing is because it's supposed to prevent the stitch getting stretched out from when you switch from a knit to a purl. And so sometimes when you go like knit to purl to, the second knit stitch gets kind of loosey-goosey. Because there's a different amount of yarn that you use when you knit versus when you purl, and doing the Eastern purl is supposed to snug that up. Like, it uses less yarn. It's supposed to prevent there being this excess that goes into the knit stitch. Anyways, this one I just did my normal, how I always knit to, purl to. Did not, like, I wrapped the yarn in the usual direction. I don't, like, there is a little bit of, you can see a bit of a difference in the sizes of the knit stitches, but like it's not bad. And when I see twisted stitches, I think, oh, that's what this looks like, but they're not twisted. 98% certain about it. So anyways, might just be like how I knit, but like that, you know, when someone like in a Facebook knitting group is asking like, hey, my ribbing looks uneven, like that's the tip that people often give is like, oh, like knit your purls the other direction. But if you're knitting flat and knitting back and forth, I think it's in the round, it's fine. If you're knitting back and forth, you end up with this kind of like thing. At least I do. Anyways, if anybody has experienced this, if you have any insight into what is going on, please tell me. And maybe you'll be like, Kirsten, literally I can't tell, but I can tell. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, so next step is blocking that. Now that I've shown you my progress keeper about where I was the last time I filmed, now I can take those out and I can wash this and I will pin it out to block it. That is that. I will have leftover of this yarn, which is fine, but like kind of silly when I'm trying to use up my stash, but whatever. I also recently bought, I'll grab it. When I was buying the alpaca, I got this from Galt House of Yarn, I believe, and they had some stuff on clearance. So this wasn't on sale, but they had other things that were on sale, and so then I bought it. This is Pure Gint, which is one of my favorite yarns. I've used it quite a bit. And this like cool kind of like speckly color. So like it has these little speckles in it. And I think it's like tweedy, rainbow tweed bits. And so when I got it, I was like, oh, I love it so much. And then I was like, oh, it's like, it's essentially the exact same color as this yarn I'm trying to like use up. So that's silly, but whatever. I have one other tiny object that I'm going to skip for now. I will talk about it another time. I have not worked on my other vest, the crochet Agnes sweater vest. I haven't worked on that at all. I haven't picked up my half and half triangles wrap again. Although I have been feeling a bit more like I want to again. I needed a break, and like I think I went into this last time, but this is like basically the same of like knitting garter with short rows. It's the exact same idea as the half and half triangles wrap. It was like too much. Oh, this is a pattern that I had talked about in my last episode with all my languishing whips, my Rose City rollers, and I had cast on the second one. I knit this almost 2 years ago, I think. I think I said a year in my last episode, but I think it's actually 2 years. I think it'll be 2 years in June. And I had cast on this one like a couple months ago and then immediately messed it up. And so then after my last episode where I was talking about my languishing whips, I decided I was going to fix it. So I ripped out my heel and re-knit it, and now it's fine. And now I'm almost done. Although I noticed today that the second one I'm knitting is like, how can I show that? Maybe it's not too bad. It looks, I think that I started knitting tighter, but it's like, you can see it's like a little bit bigger. And I like double check my stitch count to make sure I like decreased enough at the heel gusset. I don't know if I was just knitting too loose. I was working on it at my kids' swimming lessons and I might just not have been paying attention enough. I use 2mm needles when I knit socks. And so it's like, I can't go any smaller than that. Like you could, but like I'm not going to. So anyways, these will be done in theory soon. This yarn is from Rose Hill Yarns. And so because these are called the Rose City Rollers, and I'm using Rose Hill yarn, they're my Rose Hill Rollers, which brings me joy. That is, I would say, all of my knitting. Now, let me tell you about all the things I've been doing the last couple of months. Let's see, what came first? Okay, weaving class came first. I signed up for a weaving class through Fern School of Craft, which is a weaving studio here in Edmonton. And I think at Christmas time, I think I decided that it was my Christmas present or something to myself, and a way to appease myself and not buy a loom. I had been interested in weaving for like quite a while. Actually, if I'm just gonna like go all into it, my introduction into like fiber arts world was like, I had crocheted a little bit like when I was a teenager and stuff, and like crocheted a little bit like when I was pregnant with my first kid. So I was like making baby stuff. But my like introduction into fiber arts world was hand woven baby wraps. And so this was like 2015, 2016. And if you know anything about that world, you know how manic it was and how it was just like this, like it was at the height of its intensity of this like very niche culture of baby wearing, specifically like baby wearing, but then also like hand woven baby wraps. And I was just like infatuated. Like I remember finding a Facebook group, like a buy and sell group, people where they were selling high-end baby wraps, baby wearing stuff. And just like, I'd be like, oh my God, Tom, like look how much money this is. And it's like this like $600 baby wrap. And so it was all these weavers who were hand dyeing yarn and then weaving baby wraps. And so like a baby wrap might be like up to like 5 meters long. And then they would like weave multiples of them, and lots of them you had to enter into a lottery system in order to get a chance to purchase one. And sometimes you got to do like a semi-custom where like they would pick the colorway for the warp, which was like the length of the wrap, and then you got to pick the weft color. And so, you know, you'd be in this group of like, you know, maybe 6 other people who got in on this warp. And then you got to pick which colors you wanted for the weft. And there's also like commercially produced baby wraps that I also like got really into. And there was this one company that I knew I could recognize it, like actually quite a few. Like I could recognize exactly what wrap it was, like just from seeing a glimpse of it. There was this one company called Woven Wings that had a pattern. Maybe they still do. I feel like they're not making anymore, but it looked like stockinette stitches. And when I was pregnant, yeah, the one that I had an early miscarriage with last year, in those like couple weeks that I was pregnant, I bought a ring sling, which is another kind of thing for baby wearing, of the stockinette pattern, because I just had been coveting it for 9 years. And so I was pregnant again after losing Beth, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I had a miscarriage before it even arrived in the mail. And then obviously I've lost another baby since. Yeah. Anyways, I also got in on one of these semi-custom wraps with a weaver who is from Central Alberta here. And I got that when my second was like a few months old, maybe. I loved wearing my babies. Like having them like wrapped up on my body. It was like the only way that my second would fall asleep for like months, and he just cried and cried and cried, and I walked circles in my house. But he decided once he hit like 6 months that he had to be held, but I had to be physically holding him. I couldn't put him in the wrap. I had to be physically holding him. And so I didn't get to use it that much. And it's sitting in my closet, and actually I've been meaning to pull it down now that I've like getting into weaving, because I want to like analyze it and like figure out what the like weave structure is on it and stuff. And there was this really high resale market for all these baby wraps. I think that at some point the whole industry just like imploded on itself, because it just could not continue on with the like feverishness of it. And I've been out of that world for a really long time, but I was super in that world for like quite a while. So if you've never heard of any of this, you're probably thinking like, oh my God, that sounds like, what even is that? But if you know anything about that world, then you will understand everything that I'm saying. Anyways, that is what I learned. That's how I like came to love like fiber arts. And I, at the time when I had my first in 2016. So like that year I was like, oh my God, I need to learn how to weave. Like I want to make baby wraps. I want to do this. And I watched videos and like would follow these different people, mostly on Facebook, I think at the time, of like them creating these things, and I'd see their big long warps and them like, you know, doing all this hand dyeing and like feeling like, oh my God, like this, there's so much that goes into this. Now, when I think about like $600 for, you know, this hand woven, like 5-meter long, beautiful piece of fabric, I'm like, oh, I get that. But like at the time, like I get that more now, of like the amount of time and skill that goes into something like that. I have considered purchasing a loom multiple times over the last almost decade. A few years ago, I signed up for, I think, a Craftsy class, maybe. I can't remember now if they have weaving. I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know if it was Craftsy or if it was, I've also signed up for School of Sweet Georgia and watched a bunch. I like had found this loom on Facebook Marketplace, got one of those courses, I don't remember, binged the whole thing to figure out if I could figure out how to weave. Decided like, no, I don't need this. I don't have space. I don't have the time or energy or money. Like, I don't need this. That would have been relatively recently. That would have been in the last 5 years, I think. I met somebody at Knit Night who is a very avid everything. Knits, spins, weaves, has multiple blankets that she has spun all of, like processed the fleece, spun all of the yarn, and then wove it into a big blanket. And we met at Knit Night, and I was like, oh my God, tell me everything. And I ended up going, she like invited me to her house, and we were like, haha, we're strangers. Like in any other circumstance, like that, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't like go to a stranger's house. Yeah. It's kind of funny. We kind of like both acknowledged like, this is kind of funny, but it's okay because it's about wool. And she showed me her loom and she let me weave on it a little bit actually. And then she just, I'll let me grab it. I think that this was in November this past year. And yeah, so she had a loom set up with like this quite complicated project. And so she was showing me what she was doing. And then she let me just weave some like plain weave on it. And so at Knit Night a couple weeks ago, then she brought my piece to me. So she had like finished her, you know, we had my little chunk that I did. Then she started the next part of her project, finished it, you know, got it all off the loom. And then, but she brought me my bit that I had woven. And so it's like my first bit of weaving. I was so happy. I'm pretty sure it's cotton. And yeah, I just was so happy that she brought that to me. So anyways, I spent many hours at her house. She has 2 really big floor looms. She has we looked through so many different fleeces that she's accumulated. So we were talking all about like processing fleece. And yeah, so this was in November, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. Like, I want to get a loom. Like, I'm obsessed. I could tell like I'm about to be obsessed with this. But I was pregnant and decided like, okay, now is not the time for me to like start this whole new craft and like spend all this time and money. I don't know, like I had really bad morning sickness. My body was already hurting so much. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have the like capacity or energy to do this. Like, now is not the time for me to like get into this whole new craft. And so I signed up for this weaving class. This is that whole story. We've gotten to this point. I signed up for this weaving class at Fern's School of Craft. And it was for a double width blanket. And these classes sell out, but there happened to be like 2 slots left. And so I signed up, and it was in April. And so it was a Friday evening, all day Saturday, Sunday, and then a Thursday evening. And so we were weaving on Friday. How Fern has them set up is that she has the loom all ready to go. And so we don't have to do all the like measuring and threading and all that stuff, which takes a really, really long time. Did a little bit of theory, learned about how the loom works, and then got to start weaving like that night, which was really cool. And I just like fell in love with it. I just enjoyed it so much. It's so rhythmic. Sitting at a floor loom, using your hands, like passing the shuttle back and forth, using your feet on the treadles, seeing this like cloth appear before you so quickly, like it's so fast compared to knitting. Like the setup of it is a lot. And part of what had deterred me from like diving into this is because I was worried that it would feel like having to do a gauge swatch over and over and over again, and all of the like setup steps you have to do for the loom before you can actually start doing the fun part of the weaving. And so this class was perfect because I just got to come and do the fun thing of the weaving. And so I made this blanket. This is my camp blanket, is what the colorway was called. And I was so happy. Like, I just enjoyed it so much. Fern is such a good teacher. There was a group of like 6 or 7 of us maybe, just spent hours like just weaving back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And like we would break every once in a while and like do some more theory stuff. So we would learn like how to, if you were to set up your own project, how to figure out how much yarn you would need. Learned some different theory things about like, depending on how you space out your threads, that's kind of like what the gauge is. It's called the set. And like, that's kind of like the gauge. And so if you put your threads together more closely, like it's a tighter set or tighter gauge, depending on how densely you pack the fibers together, that changes the density of your fabric. There's just like this whole world of like exploring colors, like learning how to like follow the pattern so that you could see like when to change your colors. And this is knit in, or not knit, this is made with Briggs & Little Heritage. And so that was fun because this is a yarn that I'm very familiar with. And on the last day I wore my Rowan cardigan, which is knit in this exact same yarn. And that was interesting feeling, like when this comes off of the loom, like it was quite stiff, like, but really open. Like you could see, there was like, you know, you could see light coming through the weave structure. But it was quite stiff. And then you wash it and you soften it and you brush it and you like full it a bit. So it's not like felting, it's like less than that, it's fulling. I ended up fulling mine a couple of more times at home, and just because I wanted it a little bit tighter. There was some sections that hadn't, I just found a mistake, that hadn't snugged up quite as much as I wanted it to. Twisting all of the fringe. Yeah, it was so delightful. And like on the Sunday is when we were like, everyone was finishing up and we were cutting everybody's blankets off of the loom. And so we would all gather around and like, you know, you pull it off of the beam. And because of how this one was woven, it's woven in 2 layers. And so you are only seeing half of the width as you're weaving it. And you're weaving kind of the front, like the top and the bottom of it as you go back and forth. And so then when you take it off of the loom, then you can unfold it, and then it's the full width of your blanket. And so the first one that we did, the first person that finished and like pulling hers off, like I got emotional, like seeing this blanket come off of the loom, and just this like excitement from everybody, and like seeing all these beautiful, there was a couple of the colorways that people got to choose their own. It's called the weft color. So like the warp is like the long length of it, and then the weft is the color that goes back and forth that you add in. And so they got to design their own colors going. And so then they were really different and interesting, and like seeing how the colors interact with each other. It's kind of like when you're marling yarn with knitting. But it really changes like what the colors look like. And so like that was really cool to see, and it was so delightful. I enjoyed it so much. Like, can you tell? Like I just loved it. And so I went home probably on the Saturday, maybe even on the Friday. I left a little bit early on Saturday because I had woven quite a bit. I was almost done actually by that day, which is crazy. Like, can you imagine knitting a blanket in 2 days? Like, it's not that, because like all of the prep that had to go in ahead of time that Fern had done at the studio, but still, like it's just like kind of mind-boggling. And obviously this is like heavyweight yarn, like it's worsted weight yarn, and so that makes a difference. It obviously goes faster than if you're using really fine yarn. But anyways, I left a little bit early on the Saturday and went to happy hour, and I sat and had a margarita and looked up a bunch of looms, and looked up Jane Stafford Textiles, I think is the name of this. It's kind of like an online guild. She has some really good weaving courses online. I was looking up it's called the Jane Stafford School of Textiles, and she's been making online videos since like 2018 maybe, and they're all online, like by like a monthly membership kind of thing. And I was looking up looms on Facebook Marketplace, and very like sort of tentatively was like, I'm gonna buy a loom, and like made this whole plan in my head about buying a loom. And it started with, so then of course I had to learn everything there was to learn about all the different kinds of looms, which I had learned about previously a little bit. It was really cool being at the weaving studio, seeing all of the looms there. Some of them were the same, some of them were different kinds. There was one that was like a really big one. She had a bunch of table looms. And so my initial plan was like, I could buy a table loom. Like, they're quite compact, much more mobile. Like, I don't have like a ton of space. They're less money. You can do tons of things on them. And so yeah, that's what I had planned for. And so this was the second weekend in April, I believe, that I did this weaving class. And the next weekend was Easter. And we were going to be down in Calgary for Easter with my family. And another thing that I'll tell you about in a minute. And I found this table loom in Calgary, and I was like, perfect, it's a sign. It's like 5 minutes from my brother's house we were going to be at, which in Calgary is like, that's the best. And I was like, okay, perfect, I'm going to buy this loom. And so that was like early in that week. I just finished the weaving class, immediately was like, I'm buying a loom. And then I found one that was a floor loom, but like a mini kind of one. Or I think it was maybe, yeah, I think it was a floor loom. You can get table looms that have like conversion kits for you to be able to like turn them into more like a floor loom, where you can use like your feet to use the treadles. Otherwise you have to like manually do it with your hands. And then this one was kind of like one step up from that, where it was like quite small, and I think foldable, but it still had the treadles. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll get that instead. Like, it was like pretty compact, but it sold before I could. Somebody got it before me. And then I had seen this loom on Facebook Marketplace as well. I must have been looking beforehand because I had seen it a couple weeks before. And then I noticed that week that they had dropped the price. I think I had saved it on Facebook Marketplace, and so Facebook gave me a notification that they had dropped the price. And it is a 4-shaft Leclerc fanny loom. It's 45 inches. It's a floor loom. It's a big loom. Not as big as it could have been. There's ones that are bigger, but like, it's pretty big. It was bigger than the one I wove this on. This was a 36-inch loom. And it was also in Calgary. And it was a really good price. And I bought it. And so it went from, I'm going to take this weaving class so that I don't buy a loom, to, I think I'm probably going to buy a table loom. Like, I'd really like to get into this, to, oh, just kidding. Like, I'm buying a big loom. And it's big enough that we had to like borrow my parents' trailer, like coordinated with my parents and like with my husband and my brothers to like get the trailer, get it down to Calgary, like who's going to drive where. They have to go pick it up. They have to bring it out of this guy's basement and like strap it down in the trailer. And then we had to bring it back to Edmonton and then like get the trailer back to my parents. And my whole family got involved with it, because then that weekend, on Easter weekend, I was at a farm for their shearing day. And so I went to Providence Lane Homestead, which I highly recommend you follow them on Instagram. And also, I really enjoy her newsletter. I think that she was a journalist previously in her life. She's quite a good writer. She's actually just submitted a manuscript for a book. Her name's Tara. And I had seen in previous years, I think last year maybe, just, yeah, I'd seen about this shearing day. And so when they invite whoever wants to come and just like help with the shearing, not with actually the shearing. People kept asking me that if I would be shearing the sheep. Like, no, God, no. I didn't even touch a sheep that day. But we got to get a tour of her farm. She's very intentional about the use of land and caring for the land and caring for like native grass species that grow there and fire mitigation. It was really interesting. So if you wanted to, you could come early, get a tour around the farm. In the afternoon then, the shearer came. We all just like gathered around the barn, and Tara was such a wealth of information. The shearer was such a wealth of information, and just like, it was so interesting. She has border Leicesters, 1 or 2 Cotswolds, I believe. I went knowing that I was going to be coming home with a fleece, saw the sheep, watched it be sheared, skirted the fleece, and then brought it home with me. Like, that was, I loved it. It was so cool. The shearer was such a fascinating person. He explained so much, a lot of things about like animal welfare, and then also just like the logistics of shearing, different things that they watch out for. Hearing everything he had to say was just like, it was very interesting. And I stayed so long just like watching them shear because I just wanted to hear everything he was saying. But then I really wanted to go and like skirt the fleeces and like take a look at them. And so then when I saw one, I was like, oh, I think that I might want that fleece. And so then I went with the fleece over to get like to the skirting table, and we skirted it. Yeah, it was very cool. It was rainy and cold that day. I think the next day it snowed, and all of the sheep were naked, right? Because they'd just all been sheared. And so they were all confined into close quarters for a couple days when it, like, a blizzard went through. And but it was like it rained for most of the day. I wore my Musselburgh hat and a cowl, and couldn't believe how warm and dry I was. And I was like, yay, wool. It was so great. And yeah, I loved it. I had been hesitant to sign up because I'm like not a farm girl, I am a city girl. And so then I told Tara that. And she was very encouraging about it. There was a large mix of people there, some who've like come regularly for the shearing, some people who were like me, who'd like, I am scared of outdoors. Probably nobody was that as much as that as me, but yeah, it was really good. It was such a positive experience, and I came away with 2 fleeces, which wasn't the plan, but most of them were these white border Leicesters, and then there was this one Cotswold that was more gray, and I just really loved the idea about being able to like play with both of those. My plan is then that I'm going to process these fleeces, and my grand plan is that then I'm going to do what my friend did, where I'm going to process the fleece, spin it into yarn, weave it into a blanket, because that day is when we picked up the loom. And by we, I mean my husband and my brother and my dad, because I was at the farm close by to Calgary, just like having such a good time being there. And I sent them to the south end of Calgary, much further away than the 5-minute table loom, and they picked up this loom for me. So that was Easter weekend. That was on Saturday. I spent Sunday cleaning the loom. It was quite dirty. I couldn't figure out exactly what date it's from. I'm pretty sure it's from the 70s. I'm pretty sure that the person I bought it from is the only owner. Maybe the second owner, but like from a long time ago. The guy that we bought it from said that they've had it for 40 years and has not really been used. But it had been collecting dust and dirt. It was very dirty, but otherwise in really good condition. I had to replace a couple of things that had just like a couple of like connector like ropes and stuff that had deteriorated, but for the most part like really good shape. So yeah, we cleaned it all in the garage on Sunday, and then I think on Sunday evening I was like, I want to bring this into the house. Like, it's time. I just want to let's get it in. And so it is in my knitting space here with me. Once I measured it and saw how wide it is, so like the weaving width is 45 inches, the actual loom itself is about 56 inches. And when I measured in my space, and I was like, oh my God, I've got so much room. That was like, okay, that's it. I'm doing it. My so much room is like, I have a little bit of room on either side that I can like access the back of the loom, which you have to be able to do. I don't have loads of space, but it's enough space. And so, yeah, my husband and I brought it inside. I was a little bit uncertain about like how well I was going to be able to move it. I'm not strong, but once we moved it, I was like, oh my God, we've moved way heavier furniture around our house with moving and stuff. Like, I was motivated. We got it down here just fine. And so I spent Monday getting it all set up in my space. And I think on Tuesday, like I was warping, I was like getting it ready to go. I'm on my 3rd project now, and that might have been more than what this loom has ever been used before, like from what the person said. I feel like it is fulfilling its purpose in life. It's bringing me so much joy. I'm just loving it so much. Like when I was doing this class, just like getting into this zone of the treadling and the back and forth and seeing the colors interact and seeing this fabric appear, like it was so, you know, when you're like in like the flow state, it was like that, right? I'm just enamored with it. One of my friends said that's like, oh, this sounds like so much better than your sock machine. I was like so excited about buying the sock machine, and then it was like every step of the learning how to use it was sucked. Like it was so difficult to use and just so annoying right from the get-go. I don't know if I've mentioned that on here before. I think I told you about the sock machine. It's found a new home. Like I sold it. It was not bringing me joy. This is bringing me joy. So yes. And it's just like this whole other world that's like related, but also so different from the knitting world. The nomenclature that gets used for like the size of fiber that you're using like is different. Like everything's in yards and yards per pound, which is confusing to me. Everything is just like such a finer gauge for the most part. Like obviously, like I said, like this is very much knitting gauge. And yeah, just like the variety of different things that you can do with one loom. It's 4 shaft, which like the next step up would be an 8 shaft, which then you can do like absolutely everything, but like you could weave 4 shaft forever and like never run out of things to do. Actually, I got a book from the library, the Hand Weaver's Pattern Directory, which is 600 weaves for 4 shaft looms. And so, oh yeah, and then learning how to read like the weaving draft has been interesting. And like this was really cool just to like look through. Like I'll give you, I think it's okay if I show you. It's like that's what like the weaving draft would look like. And so then looking through this book and like figuring out like how does this translate into, it's like a swatch book for knitting, right? Like how does what the pattern says like translate into what the fabric actually turns into. And so I want to show you what I've made. So my first project was just like a little warp. I should have just made it longer, but it was like maybe 2 yards, and I used some of my stash, and I made this little like table runner type thing. This is probably worsted weight. The beige is a bit of a lighter weight. So, and this was knitting things that I had knit with. This red had turned into a sweater for my son many years ago that he hardly ever wore. And so it's just like plain weave, checkered pattern, like very classic. And then I finished that, and then I switched it up and did a twill. And so that has the, you know, kind of like diagonal lines throughout it. And that is just, I've been using it as like a little like seat pad for my stool that I have, that I weave on. And because I don't know what else it's going to be, but I ran out of warp. That's as much as I had. And it was just so cool, like to see it appear before my eyes, right? Like, yeah, that was quite fun. So that is my first project. And then my second project, I made a couple of tea towels. And this one, I used some crochet cotton that I had gotten from, it's kind of like a secondhand store here in Edmonton. It's called Blenders. They sell fabric. They sell clothing by the pound. And so it's not like when you go to Value Village and you like, there's a Walmart t-shirt for $22. It's like they sell clothing by the pound. And sometimes they have other miscellaneous stuff. And so I have bought fabric from them before that I have intended to like salvage to turn into something else. And a couple things where I was like, oh, this literally just fits me, and so I'm going to wear it. But I had bought, back when I had my knitting machine, my flatbed knitting machine, I had bought this crochet cotton I was planning to make, I don't know, washcloths or something with it. It's been sitting in my laundry room for 4 years, maybe now. And I wanted something that didn't feel too precious for me to practice with. And so I made a couple of tea towels. So I had this white and this kind of blue variegated one. And then this was the other one that I did. It was very thin cotton thread. And I don't actually know if it's absorbent. Like it's treated, it's mercerized cotton. And from what I could find, I did Google it beforehand, like it is absorbent, but it's just not as absorbent as like untreated cotton. I think I'm just gonna like throw them into the wash every time I do a load of wash, because that helps soften it up and increases the absorbency. But this one I did in kind of like a waffle weave, which was harder than it was like a bit more of a step up than I should have done. Like when you're threading it, when you're setting up your loom, you measure out the length of it and you have to measure how many ends you're gonna do. So that's like ends up being how wide it is. And so this one was 120 ends of like fairly thick yarn. This was 400 ends. And I didn't even make it as wide as I should have because I got bored of measuring it. I was like doing the like measuring it out on this warping board thing. Like I was like, I'm just sick of it. I'm not doing it anymore. So I didn't even like, I stopped like 20 ends before I should have. It would have taken me 5 more minutes, but whatever, it's fine. But then you have to thread every single one of those ends through, they're called heddles. And so that's what like lifts and raises the yarn that makes your different patterns. And then you have to thread every single one of those through the reed, which is the thing that determines your set, which I mentioned earlier about like how finely packed the threads are. And so then you have to do that 400 times. And so I did say earlier that I was worried that some of those steps would just feel like having to do a gauge swatch forever, like for days of doing a gauge swatch. And it did a little bit feel that way, but also not. Like it was time consuming, but it was not that complicated, I guess. You just like, you have to be careful and you have to be, like I messed up the threading on this and had to rethread some of it. It's like, okay, like that's kind of a bummer. I had to like go back like 150 threads and like fix them. So far, I'm like, it's fine. I don't mind doing it. It's kind of cool to like see how you can change your colors in the warp as you're measuring it all out. And then you also get to change your colors in your weft as you go. So that's why, these 2 vertical blue stripes were from my warp. And then these horizontal stripes were from my weft. I added them in. And so getting to kind of play with all those different things. I watched, all of the first season of these Jane Stafford videos. I have now since signed up for another online course through Gather Textiles, which is another weaving studio here in Edmonton. And that has been really good. It's definitely more like beginners. The Jane Stafford one kind of assumes that you already know things, and it's kind of like you're refreshing your memory, or yeah, like she kept saying like, oh, everybody has some 2/8 cotton in their stash. And I'm like, I don't. Like everyone's made a bunch of tea towels. Like, no, I'm new. Like I have never done this before. And so the one from Gather Textiles is like right from the beginning. I think like now I feel like I know enough about like how a loom works. Like spending so much time sitting at the loom weaving this, it really like clicked some of those things that like I'd watched a ton of videos already, right? Like I'd said, I'd done these kind of like online courses already, just like consuming the information without anything feel how it worked. And so I feel like weaving this and like it clicked. And this was kind of a more complicated weaving setup because it was that like double layered one. But it just like, it clicked. And so now as I've been going through this Gather Textiles one, I feel like it's covering all of the things that I needed to cover. And so I've got a set of tea towels on my loom right now. I just started weaving yesterday, and I had gone over to Gather Textiles because I had to get a couple of parts for my loom that, like, of those cords that broke. Chatted with the owner for a little bit. She, yeah, showed me a few things about another space that just like filled with looms. It was really cool. They sell a lot of weaving materials, lots of different parts for different looms, and then they have a ton of samples. So I was asking, like, hey, is there a, you know, a good like kit that I could buy? It was like kind of a beginner thing. And so she was like, yeah, sure, like, here, look at all of our samples that we have. And it was just like, there were so many things. It was so like overwhelming in a good way. Oh, and they had a shirt that had been sewn from handwoven fabric, which also was like, oh my God, I'm going to do that. Like, that was really cool. And so anyways, I bought this kit for this tea towel set. And so I, this is my third warp now that I've like measured, third time dressing the loom. Oh, when I did these, I like made a major error. That was part of why it took so long to thread. Just remembering that now. I made like a major error in the process of setting up the loom, that you're supposed to be able to know exactly which thread is next for you to pull. And so that they don't get twisted at the back. You're not like, they're not getting jumbled. Like, you know exactly, you wound it onto your warping board to measure it in this exact order, and you can pull that exact thread to thread it. I took out the pieces that were keeping that in order before I was supposed to, and it made it much more difficult than it needed to be. I talked for so long. I ran out of space on my memory card. I ran out of space on my battery. I mean, like, my battery ran out of power, and now it's not working anymore. So I'm just gonna say goodbye from here. I don't remember what I was talking about. The last thing I said. I am just so excited about my weaving that I completely lost track of everything that I was saying. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me and listening to me gab about my new favorite thing. I'm really excited about it, and you can probably tell. So happy knitting and happy weaving. Goodbye.